Lee Kuan Yew is here as Singapore's founding father. He served as prime minister for more than 30 years until 1990. He now serves as minister mentor to the current prime minister, his son. At age 86, he is regarded as an elder statesman on the global stage whose views are widely sought. He's in the United States for meetings in New York with people like Henry Kissinger, in Washington with people like the chairman of the Federal Reserve, Ben Bernanke, and the president of the World Bank, Bob Zoellick. He will also receive a Lifetime Achievement Award from the U.S. ASEAN Business Council. I am pleased to have him back at this table to get a worldview that he is highly regarded for understanding the dynamics of the world that we have come from and the world that we are going to. So welcome.
Thank you.
Where are we, do you think, in terms of a kind of world order? We have gone through, in the 89 and 90, the collapse of the Soviet Union, the collapse of the Berlin Wall. Then we had the United States engaged in the Middle East in a long war that continues. Then we had the global economic crisis. So many people say, what is going to come out of this?
Well, I see the imbroglio in Iraq and Afghanistan as distractions. It's not going to change the world, whatever happens to Iraq or Afghanistan, because the major changes that are taking place is the recovery of China and to a lesser extent of India, the places they occupied 2 centuries or 3 centuries ago before Western colonization blanketed them. 3 centuries ago, they were, between the two of them, 60% of the world GDP, just the population and the production that they put out. China is again on the growth path. She's now a member of WTO. She knows that every year she's growing faster than anybody else and can do that for another 20, 30 years because they've got such an enormous number of workers back in the West in the hinterland. 8%, 9%, 10%, no trouble at all. But after that, then they reach a ceiling where the labor is concerned and they got to increase productivity. But by then, in 30 years, they would have an economy, not per capita, but in total terms, bigger than the USA, which means they've got resources to build up political, strategic, and other influence. And in fact, in anticipation of that, people already treat her differently because they know that this is going to be a big fellow around the block. It's a watershed. I mean, the world order that we knew was dominated by the Caucasian peoples. Europe, technology, sailing ships, then aircraft. They conquered the world. Industrialization.
Globalization.
Globalization. Well, industrialization first and then they globalize it. And America is the extension of Europe, with a difference in that she's more embracing of other races. The 20th century was the American century. The first half of the 21st century, a large part of it will still be the American. But I believe the second half, you will have to share top places with China and also with India, make space for them too.
You have said in a speech I read just today that the relationship between the United States and China, based on what you just said, has become the most important global geopolitical issue of the century.
Yes.
How they both handle it.
From the Chinese side, in a very pragmatic, almost cold-blooded and clinical fashion. On the American side, there's been some vacillation. First, China is an adversary, strategic adversary, then China is a strategic partner, then China is a stakeholder, then China is a not carrying its weight. But
China wants to be, as in the famous words of Bob Zoellick, now the president of the World Bank, and they want to be a stakeholder.
As Bob Zoellick coined that phrase.
In Singapore, I think.
Well, I mean, whatever it was.
Wherever it was, you know.
And the Chinese were wondering what that meant.
No, they didn't know what stakeholder meant. They now know.
Yes, they looked up the dictionaries. They didn't get much out of it. They discussed it with friends, and I'm one of the friends. So I said to them, well, that means, although you're not a shareholder in the company, you have an interest in the company, because you sell to the company, and if the company goes bust, you've got no customer. And if you've got no customer, your trade will go down and you have unemployment. So you have an interest in keeping that company going. And they have an interest in keeping you going because you are a good customer. You're a good producer for them. Cheap goods, cheap products, and good quality.
Well, there's great hope that they will become more of a consuming economy and we'll become more of a saving economy. You point that out.
The Chinese have had 4,000 years or 5,000 years of all kinds of catastrophes. Earthquakes, floods, famine, invasions, where the central government failed entirely. And nobody can help you. You've got to help yourself. Let me tell you this anecdote. I was having my game left shoulder from golf being massaged by a very superior Chinese master who attends to their leaders. And they sent him down to try and fix my game shoulder, and he fixed it in 3 weeks. So we had to chat, because I have 45 minutes on the couch, what can I do? So there was a flood up the Yangtze River. So I said, oh, well, now you've opened up. You get lots of relief supplies. He looked at me and puzzled. He says, you don't understand. The relief supplies will arrive in Shanghai. The floods will prevent it from reaching the villages. And each village knows that it's going to happen from time to time. And up on a little hill, they keep the rice, the salt, and all the essentials safe so that they will survive such a calamity. And that habit, just like the Japanese have the kit underneath their bed for earthquakes, that is their habit of surviving. So they stuff the money under the pillow, because banks are not trustworthy, or gold.
And that habit is not going to change, that habit of saving.
It will take a long time. It will take 1-2 generations of affluence. And it may happen in the cities, and it's not going to happen in the countryside.
You say this about America as well. You talk about the Chinese as having patience, and they have persistence, and they have discipline, and they have organization. But you say America has something special that will be part of the inevitable competition. It is its resilience, and more importantly, its creativity.
Yes, of course. Look, it's not just American talent that gets you here. There are just 300 million people, and they've got 1,300 million, and very many more able people. But you are attracting all the adventurous minds from all over the world and embracing them, and they become part of your team. Now, I don't see 2 million Indians and 500,000 other peoples, Japanese, Koreans, and others, becoming part of China. I mean, first, the language is so difficult.
Yes.
Secondly, the culture is not embracive. How do you fit in?
What should the United States do as it looks at the inevitable growth of China as a dominant player? What would be a wise foreign policy?
I think...
Because you have 2 or 3 decades before it reaches its full strength.
No, even in 3 decades, it won't reach its full strength. In 3 decades, its per capita is still about 1/3 of America.
Right. Its gross domestic product.
Well, for it to reach America's standard of living and standard of technology will take more than 100 years.
So what should the United States do while it has the position it has now?
I think make sure that they feel that they are accepted at the top table.
Make sure that China feels like it's accepted at the top table.
Yes, your place is waiting for you when you make it, but you've got to play by the rules of the game. And the key really is whether the next generation, this generation understands it. They know that they have no chance competing against the West, America especially, in technology, and especially military technology. There's absolutely no chance. They may build an aircraft carrier to guard the shipping lines where they carry oil and other minerals. This is the first time where the Chinese are growing, but dependent on the world for its resources.
But they're going around the world signing up contracts in Iran and in Africa. And
absolutely, but before that, it's all within the Chinese empire. They don't have to worry about the rest of the world. This time, they have to worry about the rest of the world, because without the resources, the oil, the iron ore, nickel, whatever, the growth will stop.
Will they be able to create the domestic demand that's necessary as they find exports reduced?
Slowly. But in the meantime, there's keeping the economy going by enormous expenditure on infrastructure in the West. High-speed roads, high-speed railways, airports, telephone lines, bringing water from the south up to the north where it's arid and dry. Huge, enormous mammoth projects. That keeps it going.